They knew the Ro-Ro ferry design was dangerous, and they knew it for decades before the first ship went down. But they sent passengers aboard anyway, over and over again, because fixing the problem would destroy the very thing that made these ferries profitable. Roll on, roll over. That nickname circulated inside the industry for years, and by the time most people understood why, thousands had already drowned. Almost nobody outside maritime engineering grasps what makes car ferries different from every other vessel crossing open water. Cargo ships have watertight compartments, and so do cruise liners, and so does nearly everything else that carries people across the ocean. Ro-Ro ferries sit wide open from bow to stern with massive car decks and nothing dividing them. That creates a problem so catastrophic that naval architects warned about it before your parents were born. The free surface effect is the name for what happens next, and it works like this. Water gets onto that flat open deck, and it does not stay in one place. When the ship rolls to one side, the water rushes to the low side with it, shifting the center of gravity toward the already tilted side. This reduces the ship's metacentric height, the distance between its center of gravity and the point where it pivots, making the vessel increasingly unstable. That shift makes the ship roll further, which sends more water rushing in the same direction, and physics takes over from there. A runaway feedback loop forms. A ship that should naturally right itself accelerates into the roll instead, and within minutes or even seconds, it flips completely. 60% of Ro-Ro ships that capsized following collisions went down in less than 10 minutes, according to a study by Deadliest Veritas. Some capsized so fast that passengers never reached the lifeboats. Roll-on, roll-off car ferries are inherently unstable, the UK Court of Formal Investigation concluded after examining one of these disasters, and that language came directly from their official report. March 6, 1987, brought the deadliest demonstration when the Herald of Free Enterprise departed Zeebrugge, Belgium, bound for Dover. Townsend Thorsen operated the ship, and the crew followed a departure routine they had repeated many times before. What nobody checked that night changed everything. The assistant bosun, responsible for closing the bow doors, had fallen asleep in his cabin, and no indicator lights existed on the bridge to show the captain his bow sat wide open to the sea. Water began flooding the car deck around 6:28 in the evening, roughly 23 minutes after departure, and 2,000 tons poured in within 30 seconds. Survivor Simon Osborne described the capsizing in terms that stayed with him for life, saying the ship literally tipped over as if you were knocking over a glass of water, and it seemed that quick, 90 seconds. That is how long the Herald took to capsize, and the ferry settled on a sandbank in about 30 feet of water. That sandbank saved hundreds of lives because the ship never sank completely, but 193 people still died, and this is where negligence burns even hotter. October of 1983 brought a near-identical incident when a sister ship called Herald of Free Enterprise sailed with her bow doors open. Captains wrote to management requesting indicator lights on the bridge so they could verify door closure, and management responded with words later read aloud at the inquiry. Do they need an indicator to tell them whether the deck storekeeper is awake and sober? The memo asked. 25,000 pounds would have covered faster ballast pumps. Management refused that request too. Justice Sheen led the investigation and concluded that from top to bottom, the body corporate was infected with the disease of sloppiness. Corporate manslaughter charges collapsed in court because prosecutors could not attribute negligence to any single controlling mind within the organization, which meant nobody went to prison after 193 people died. If you are enjoying this video and want to hear more stories like this, subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. Drop a comment letting me know which part of this story shocks you the most, because what comes next gets much worse. September 27, 1994, brought another catastrophe when the Estonia departed Tallinn heading across the Baltic Sea. Passengers heard metallic banging around at 1 in the morning as waves slammed against the 55-ton bow visor, and within 15 minutes that visor separated completely from the ship. Water flooded the car deck at roughly 1,000 cubic meters per minute, and an immediate 15-degree list developed to starboard. 30 minutes later, 60 degrees. 20 minutes after that, the radar showed nothing. 852 people died that night. making it the deadliest European peacetime maritime disaster since the Titanic. Not seaworthy. That conclusion came from the joint investigation completed in 2023, which also revealed the seaworthiness certificate was incorrect because the required bow inspection never actually happened. But the warnings ran even deeper than paperwork failures. 20 months before the Estonia sank, a near-sister ship called Diana II suffered almost identical bow visor failure, and nobody informed the Estonia crew because the ships belonged to different companies. A 1974 safety report had already concluded that nearly all locking devices of bow doors on existing vessels are too weak, 6 years before the Estonia was even built. The Scandinavian Star ferry had also burned in 1990 with 165 deaths, and these mounting disasters finally pushed the International Maritime Organization to act. The death toll from major ro-ro disasters staggers comprehension. December 1987 brought the MV Doña Paz, which caught fire after colliding with an oil tanker in the Philippines and killed approximately 4,386 people. September 2002 brought the MV Joola, which capsized off the Gambia and killed 1,863, more than the Titanic. April 2014 brought the MV Sewol in South Korea, carrying approximately 250 students from Danwon High School on what should have been a school trip. 75 of those 325 students survived. That number is not a typo. The crew repeatedly broadcast announcements ordering passengers to stay in their cabins while the ship sank, and those who obeyed died while those who defied the order and reached the deck survived at far higher rates. One recovered text message from a student read simply, "Mom, I am sending you this now because I am afraid I might not be able to say it later. I love you." More than 11,000 people dead, according to conservative totals from documented incidents alone. The Worldwide Ferry Safety Association tracked over 17,000 ferry deaths between 2000 and 2014, and 97% occurred in developing countries. And here is what brings this story into the present. These ferries still operate with essentially the same basic design because the open car deck cannot be eliminated. Vehicles need to drive on and drive off through those doors, and any fixed barrier blocking that path would destroy the ship's entire purpose. 4.27 billion passengers and 373 million vehicles move through the global ferry industry every single year. Modern safety improvements under the Stockholm Agreement have made ro-ro ferries significantly safer in developed nations since the Estonia disaster. This agreement, directly triggered by Estonia's sinking and implemented in 1996 under the SOLAS 90 standard, required ships to survive damage with water on their car decks. Newer ships carry sponsons, external buoyancy chambers that help prevent capsizing, along with longitudinal bulkheads and anti-heeling systems, and only 20 fatalities occurred in developed countries during 2023. But 80% of ferry deaths still happen in Africa and South Asia, where weaker regulations govern older vessels. Between 800 and 1,500 people die on ferries annually worldwide. A member of UK Parliament put it plainly in 1996. The marine industry, he stated, runs at minimum safety for maximum profit, and roll-on, roll-off ferries do not fail safely. They fail lethally and catastrophically. The core vulnerability remains built into the design. Water on the car deck creates an uncontrollable positive feedback loop, and the ship goes over before most passengers can escape. Physics does not care about regulations, and economics keeps pushing operators toward larger open decks and faster turnaround times. Every passenger boarding one of these vessels today trusts that every door is closed, every latch secured, and every crew member doing their job perfectly. Because when something goes wrong on a ro-ro ferry, it goes wrong fast, and there is almost never time to fix it. This is definitely not the first time that a fatal mistake has been made with the sea. In 1947, over 50,000 tons of chemical weapons were dumped into the ocean, and 80 years later, those weapons are being sent back to the surface. Click the video on screen right now to find out how they are trying to clean up the mess.